Let's say you have a friend whose mum is suffering from depression. Do you pray boldly that God will heal her and take her depression away? Do you hedge your bets and simply pray for God to be in that situation and to guard the people who are caring for her, and that healing will come through their medical knowledge? Or do you pray something neutral which doesn't set anyone up for disappointment, maybe asking for peace for your friend and his family, or that they'll turn to God for comfort? Will God act according to whichever prayer is prayed in that moment? If you pray for successful medical intervention, then will God place the mum's mental health in the hands of the doctors and withhold divine healing because it wasn't requested? If you simply pray for peace in the situation, then will God grant peace but leave the care of the mum to medical science alone? Will God step in if we pray the wrong thing, or auto-correct the mistakes we make in our prayers? Or is God bound by what we ask? Does God even take notice of our prayers, or does he just do what he wants? Let's say that you pray boldly for healing, as we are often told to do when it comes to prayer. If you prayed that God would heal your friend's mum of her mental illness, that her depression would completely disappear, that it would be replaced with peace and hope for the future, then what does it mean if she isn't healed, and actually she gets worse, and eventually takes her own life? Did God hear those prayers and decide on this occasion he wasn't going to do anything? Or he allowed it to happen because it was for some kind of greater good? I use the example of the mum with depression because this is my story. In this scenario, it was my mum who was ill with depression. I'm pretty sure that all these different kinds of prayers were spoken over me and my family, and yet she wasn't healed. She remained mentally unstable throughout her life, and her illness caused a lot of pain and heartache within our family. And when she finally lost the battle with her illness and took her own life, she was alone because she'd walked away from everyone who ever cared for her, because she believed that they were against her. When it came to prayer, all the bases were covered, but none of the prayers made any apparent difference to her or to us as a family. I'm not unique in my story, and I'm sure we've all struggled with the consequences of unanswered prayer. Or are they actually unanswered prayers? I've heard people say that God does answer our prayers. However, we don't always get what we want, and sometimes his answer to our prayer is no. I've heard it said God also sometimes answers wait or not yet. This is apparently more relevant to some situations than others. It doesn't really make sense in my story unless God's answer to healing my mum was not yet, followed by a hard no. If we believe in the power of prayer, and we believe that God lovingly hears our prayers, then this is a double-edged sword. We can be reassured that God is with us and is an active presence working in our lives. But if God answers our prayers with a no, then we're usually offered two reasons why. The first is that the thing we asked for was not according to God's divine plan, that there is some incomprehensible reason why the answer can't be yes. And the second is that our faith was lacking, and we didn't believe in the power of prayer enough for God to do anything. The first explanation of the no is obviously easier to swallow. God chose not to do what we asked because it just couldn't be, for reasons that we don't get to understand, perhaps down to some kind of butterfly effect situation, that if someone is healed or someone gets the job they wanted, then that answered prayer could result in a major health pandemic or the Pope getting assassinated. Whilst it can be frustrating, I guess this answer allows us to enter into awe and invites us to engage with the mystery of God, so that's something, I guess. The second explanation is more difficult to accept. God chose not to answer my prayer because of my lack of faith and my disbelief. Or to put it another way, God said no because I was not good enough, my faith was insufficient, and the prayer not being answered is basically my fault.